All right, so are you ready to dive into something kind of interesting today?
Yeah, shoot.
We're taking on this question that someone sent in, and honestly, it's one of those things that makes you go, huh, really?
Okay, I'm intrigued. Lay it on me.
Does country music make people suicidal?
Oh, wow.
Right. It's a little out there, but hey, that's what a deep dive is for, right? To explore these weird questions.
I'm all for it. Where do we even begin with a question like that?
Well, there's this 1992 study that looked into exactly this connection between country music and suicide rates.
1992, okay.
Yeah, and let's just say it's not exactly what you'd call light reading.
I can imagine. But seriously, how do you even study something like that? What kind of research did they do?
It was some of the earliest research to look at how music impacts, like big social problems, suicide especially.
Wow, I didn't realize that people were studying this kind of thing back then. What was the focus before that?
You're not going to believe this, but apparently it was more about TV movies?
TV movies. Seriously.
Yeah, like how they were impacting suicide rates.
Okay, we're definitely putting that on the list for a future deep dive, that's for sure. But back to the country music thing. So they actually found a link.
They did. This study looked at 49 different cities, and they found something pretty wild, as the amount of country music on the radio went up in a city.
Hold on, let me guess. The suicide rate went up too.
You got it. And there's more. The study only saw this connection for white residents, not black residents.
Interesting. But that's just correlation, not causation. Yeah.
Exactly. It's like, okay, think about this. People eat more ice cream when it's hot outside, right?
Right.
And more people get sunburns when it's hot outside. But you wouldn't say that eating ice cream causes sunburns, would you?
No way. Great analogy. So if blasting, say, Kenny Rogers all day isn't going to suddenly make someone suicidal, what were the researchers saying about this link they found? Why country music, especially among white people?
Well, they really honed in on the themes that pop up in a lot of country music lyrics.
Okay, well, like what? Give me an example.
Well, you know, things like heartbreak, relationship troubles, alcohol use.
Yeah, okay, I see where you're going with this.
Money problems, even that feeling of being trapped at work or being taken advantage of. And I mean, that stuff can get anyone down, you know? But it's all over country music.
Right, true.
Like, remember that nitty-gritty dirt band song, the one about the family that loses their farm? Heartbreak.
Oh, yeah. And that feeling of economic hardship, especially for rural communities, that's definitely a big theme in country music.
So are they basically saying that if you're already feeling suicidal and you hear those same tough situations in your music, it could make those feelings stronger?
Yeah, that's a big part of it. They called it audience receptiveness. Basically, people who are dealing with those tough situations in real life might connect with country music more strongly, you know? And maybe it even makes them feel even worse.
So it's not like listening to country music is going to make you suicidal, but for people who are already in that vulnerable place, it can really resonate, maybe a little too much.
That's the gist of it, yeah. But they found another layer to this whole thing, too.
Oh, really? What's that?
Well, you know how country music fans often have their own kind of subculture, right?
Definitely.
Like, think about it, the way they dress, the country music radio stations, going to concerts together. It's like its own little world. And that probably makes people feel even more connected to the music and everything it's saying.
Right. When you feel like you're a part of something and that something is like singing about your struggles, it can be really powerful.
Exactly.
But at the same time, I can see how in the wrong circumstances, that could take a bad turn.
Oh, absolutely. And you know what's really interesting? To be sure they weren't jumping to conclusions, the researchers actually looked at other factors that can play a role in suicide rates. Things like poverty levels, divorce rates, even access to guns.
And even with all that, they still found that country music and suicide link in white communities, that's a pretty big deal, right?
For sure. But, and it's a big but, this is 1992, right? A lot has changed since then.
True. I mean, music has changed so much since then. Even country music itself.
Think about it.
Yeah, like would a study like this even find the same thing in 2024?
Right. And it makes you wonder about other genres too. What about them?
Oh, totally. Like, could you imagine if they found a similar link between, say, heavy metal and suicide?
Or like some of that super intense emotional stuff you hear in certain hip-hop or EDM. It can get pretty dark.
For sure.
And that's what I think is so interesting about this research, even though it's from way back then. It makes you think about what's going on today. Like, what are people struggling with now? And how is that showing up in their music. It's like music is a mirror or something, you know?
Totally. Like, you can look at what music is popular and what people are saying in their songs, and it tells you something about what's going on in their heads, right?
Exactly. It really makes you think about how art can show us how we're feeling, maybe even change how we're feeling. But to be clear, we're not saying listening to one sad song is going to make you do something drastic, right?
Right, like, don't go throwing out all your Taylor Swift albums or anything.
Exactly. It's more about, like, the power of music, right?
Yeah.
It can get to those deep down feelings, good or bad.
Yeah, for sure. Like that saying, misery loves company, right? Sometimes that company is a song that just gets what you're going through.
Totally. And there's nothing wrong with that. Right?
Yeah.
We all need ways to deal with our emotions. But it's good to be aware of what we're listening to and how it makes us feel, right? Like, if a certain type of music is always bringing you down, maybe ask yourself why that is.
Yeah, or maybe it's a sign to try listening to something new, you know? There's so much music out there. You might even find your new favorite band.
Totally. But, going back to the study, the thing that really struck me was,
What was it? What really stood out to you about the study?
it really reminded me how important it is to, like, really look beyond just the surface level of things when we're talking about these complicated social issues.
Yeah, I get that.
Like, it'd be so easy to just dismiss this whole country music and suicide thing as just a coincidence,
Yeah.
or just way too simple of an answer, right?
Right.
But when you actually get into the research, look at all the details, it's clear that there's something real there. It's more complex than it seems at first.
It's like they say, sometimes truth is stranger than fiction, right? Or I guess in this case, stranger than a country song.
Totally.
Yeah.
And it just goes to show why these deep dives are so important. When we take the time to really break down a topic, look at it from all these different angles, that's when things get interesting. That's when we actually learn something.
It's all about asking questions, right?
Yeah.
Being open to new ideas and like accepting that there isn't always one right answer.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
So where does that leave us? What's the takeaway for everyone listening?
Well, I think the biggest thing is just remembering how powerful music is, right? It can be a reflection of what we're feeling, but it can also shape how we feel, And this isn't about pointing fingers at country music or any genre for that matter.
Right. It's not about ditching your music library or anything.
Exactly. It's about just being a little more aware of what we're listening to and how it makes us feel. If a certain type of music is always bumming you out, maybe think about why that is.
And I guess on the flip side, if you find yourself always listening to music with darker themes, it could be like a little nudge to maybe reach out for some support, or find some healthier ways to deal with those feelings.
Exactly. It's all about balance, right?
Music can be such a source of comfort, inspiration, and connection. And sometimes, yeah, it can even be a bit of a wake-up call, something that makes you take a closer look at yourself, and what's going on around you.
Beautifully said.
And on that note, we'll leave you with this. If this study were done today, in 2024, what other genres of music do you think might have a connection with suicide rates? What would that tell us about what people are going through these days? What are your thoughts? Let's keep this conversation going. Find us on social media and let us know. Until next time, keep diving deep.